I'll say it again, since you just started, call the meeting to order, and you know the role, right? We had some absences, and approval of the minutes.
I do not have a
You don't have
minute,
to-
so it'll be at our next meeting.
Okay, so got you some minutes today, so we'll skip over that. And then we have appearances. We have three registrants. And Candace, both you and Jeff register, right? You both want to speak. So Candace, would you like to speak and kind of limit it to 3 minutes?
3 minutes, no, well, it's all right. Well, I've covered, but actually we'll be reiterating a bunch of things. I have here some packets for you to consider while we're going over things. And for you. Here, I want to say, actually, you guys want to you're public in here. This is the preamble to the Constitution. This is what I'm laying out, like what brings us all together, what makes us what brings us here as in the government facility to speak to we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Okay, so now we're going back. This is follow-up to a presentation that I gave on November 2nd, 2022, which I wrote. I read this memo, which I shall read again. What this all has to do with, this has to do with the dissolution of municipal ordinance, chapter 434, no parking, street maintenance, second and fourth Tuesday of each month, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the one-way street block of the 4300 Short Acre Road, Monona. The above referenced decision was hastily reached following an extremely long Public Works Committee meeting last October 2021 that ran over 3.5 hours due to the Winnequa construction project. Our issue at that time was to end the previously imposed alternate parking odd even 365 days a year, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. on a narrow one-way street for the sake of brush pickup that only happens 3 times a year when students aren't parked here. This was unsafe, unsound, unwarranted, and unwanted. Our petition to restore the historic right side parking had been disregarded by this committee when it was presented by a local attorney at the previous February. The attorney did not know what to do with that. It was clear that this was no longer a democracy, but a Game of Thrones, where the First Amendment right to petition was simply disregarded. They had pitted neighbors against neighbors here, and that was bad all the way around. This is fascism, but at this time, we were happy to have saved the historic parking norms that were agreed to in the October meeting by one person. Anyway, now we have come to address the still excessive city parking, no parking restriction on this short 1 acre block. We have lived here for 21 years. That was before all this nonsensical power mania. The street maintenance was exemplary, no problems. How did this change? The premise for all this had to do with the making life easier for the brush pickup guys. Firstly, the street maintenance workers do not follow the second and fourth Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. schedule. They just don't. It's also a great inconvenience for the grandparents across the street, as well as the high school students who, on top of COVID, don't need any more complicators in their lives. Secondly, the city of Monona has contracted with the Barnes Company to do brush pickup, and they absolutely do not follow the street maintenance schedule. They are very nice and accommodating. Thirdly, all this excessive signage, there are 11 signs on a block with 15 properties, only creates obstacles for leaf pickup people who also do not follow this street maintenance schedule. Fourth, if the city of Monona wants to make the street maintenance more efficient, they should get rid of all the excessive signs and opt for a less is more approach. For example, indicate right side parking only on the strategic places instead of junking out the place with too many no parking signs on both sides of the street. This is urban ugliness. The bottom line is that street maintenance does not use the second and fourth Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. to do their work. It is unsound, unwarranted, and unwanted. This is rulemaking for the sake of rulemaking and its pretzel logic. I hope that the city of Monona will once again embrace democracy and the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Please dissolve municipal ordinance chapter 434 and get rid of all these unnecessary signs. I welcome any and all questions or concerns. I look forward to hearing from you at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your kind attention to this important matter. Me, Candace Verber, which I heard absolutely nothing from. And so followed up in May. I am here providing pictures of here. This is the no parking sign, which is now planted in our front yard. We have lived here for 19 years without this urban ugliness, and this is not progress. Here are pictures of this is 4th Tuesday of the April, showcasing the no parking sign with a fully parked street. So there, fully parked street, we're here again in May, the 4th Tuesday of the month, same scenario showcasing this. That means that the people are ignoring this and the police are ignoring this. So that is making a mockery of rulemaking altogether. So let's cover the Classville decision-making components, logic, ethics, and morality, in which none of these are employed with this decision-making, even including the most elementary of mathematics. Why is the 4,300 block of Shore Acres the only block in all of Monona with this kind of draconian no parking restrictions? And here's the consequences of your action or inaction. We get the corrupt dissolution of American democracy. And sitting here doing this, it's taken me all this time, effort. I get nothing back. I hear nothing. And, re-election, shovel the cards, new deck, new people. I bet nobody had this memo from November before anyone. That didn't get passed on. We got no minutes for May, so who knows what's going on there. But, I encourage you to right this egregious wrong committed in the past in order to preserve the charm and character of Monona. As President Biden puts it, we are fighting for the very soul of America. Please see the preamble, because this is what we're dealing with right here in Monona at the bottom of our driveway. So remember, this whole nugget, if you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. Is that 3 minutes?
It's 6 minutes and 37 seconds.
I have
Yeah, I just have about 3 seconds to say.
Sure.
Why is the 4,300 block different? We're a one-way street. We had alternate side parking put on a bunch of other streets in the area. By the high school, they're all two-way. If this is about, street maintenance, that kind of stuff. Doesn't that apply to other streets in the area? Why the 4,300 block? Why not the 4,400 block of Shore Acres? That's also a one-way, or the 4,500. Why is the 4,300 the only one where we looked at alternate side parking, and now we have this? Okay, we'll go back to the one side, but we want 2 days a month without parking there. Why are we different? That's it. That's what I want to know. I know it's a rhetorical question, but it's also a rhetorical question I'd have to come back and ask again next month and the month after. So thank you.
I've got extra packets for I'm sorry, what is your name? Tim. Tim. Spencer. Nice to meet you. I have these packets that I made up for the other people. So let's say we got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope these get passed on to the other people and City Hall, Mayor, Doug Wood, etc., etc.
I got you.
Thank you. I hope to hear something. Thank you.
Wish you were on my team.
All right. Does anybody want to discuss any of that?
Let the record show that they set their time for next month. my comment.
Gotcha. And just as a refresher, the history there, again, was that, we had alternate side, right? And then we switched it back to the way it was, with only having 2 days out of the month, that there's no parking. So we,
At their request.
at their request, yes.
Yes.
And so the big issue is that they don't like the signs that say no parking on those days, correct?
Right.
But the signs that we installed are in line with the
MUTC.
federal standards, right? That we must adhere to.
Yes.
So we can't take them down if there's no parking, right?
The parking signs that are on their side of the street say no parking this side, which are regulatory signs for federal standards.
Okay,
The signs that are on the east side of the street are there to indicate the no parking on the space.
gotcha. Because on the other side of the street, there's no parking at all.
Right, and those are regulatory signs as well for MUTCD standards.
And if there were no parking signs, then no one would know that there's no parking.
And just because the signs say maintenance occurs on the second and Friday, staff and contractors are allowed to do maintenance on other days the road is open.
No.
The signs do not restrict us to just those 2 days.
Yes. Because those days are supposed to be the fail safe, that if we can't get to it, we can't get to it, then there's those 2 definite days that we can get to.
Right.
Are you aware of any Tuesdays where someone had to be cited or cars parked along the side of the road?
The citation issue will have to go with PD. We have numerous areas in the city where we have parking issues according to parking restrictions. Oftentimes they're out on other calls or patrolling other areas. If our court enforcement officer was allowed to write parking tickets, it would be a different story. But the patrol officers do that.
Gotcha.
So we have that issue throughout the city as far as vehicles parked where there's no parking. Regarding their block, the previous block, we don't have that situation where the students park in their block. But what you see there today is exactly what they wanted when they approach this committee and city council
Mhm.
in a public forum.
Gotcha. And I guess one more question. Have we heard from any other neighbor in the last 6 months with the constant communication regarding this? We haven't heard nothing from any other citizens.
We have not heard from anybody, going all the way back to when they appeared the last time prior to the current sign showing up. So it's been about 2 years-ish,
Okay,
so,
okay.
but we have not heard from anyone else.
Gotcha. Does anyone else have anything to add?
It sounds like they really just don't like signs, that the parking situation itself isn't necessarily an issue, it's the signage.
Except for the 2 days a month on the other side of the street that they don't think is necessary also.
The issue that started this whole scenario was parking was only allowed on the east side of the street. The folks on the east side of the street rarely receive their full service. The snowplow, snow and ice control, leaf collection, brush collection, and garbage collection, as well as other street maintenance like street sweeping. That's why we implemented the even odd, so the traffic would park on both sides on every other day. So then we could hit both sides with all of our services. That's when the Verbergs put together their petition this committee and council. We reverted back to the way it is today, with the fail-safe of us putting us second and fourth Friday for maintenance, so we could address all those other scenarios if we didn't get them earlier. So that's why we don't take action, because this is what the residents wanted. They wanted it and now they don't. So we still have to provide services.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it sounds like they just don't like the signs really.
right,
I think so.
it comes down to the signs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have to have them
Right,
under
yeah,
federal
the
standards.
signs,
Yeah.
yeah.
And is the frequency, I presume the frequency of the signage is something set down by.
So we have 5 sets. And if we were to remove 2 sets, then the distance between would be too long. And we would heard from our PD in the past where I can't see that sign. So they're based on their intervals allowed per federal standards. So we have 5 sets, I think it's like 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet maybe, that block. So
What if, just out of curiosity, if we painted the entire curve yellow?
painting the curb yellow without signage, tells the person parking there nothing.
Okay,
Cops won't write tickets unless there's a regulatory sign there.
gotcha.
So if you have a yellow curb painted without a regulatory ordinance, it's unenforceable.
Okay,
But if we have an ordinance on the books without the signage, then that could probably be challenged in court because there's no sign indicating they can't park.
gotcha.
So
So just so I understand, it sounds like they don't like the signs. The signs are there because of the parking arrangement, and the parking arrangement is because of what they and other residents requested years ago.
Yes,
it's a simple.
yes, and it doesn't ever seem to stop. Yep. So, anyway. All right, any other comments? All right, moving on to discussion and consideration for renaming Squall Circle. Yep, and then, well, I'm sorry, it's fine because,
No, go ahead, please. You said leave them talk. I do want you to go. Go ahead.
oh, you, please come speak. Did you have something to say?
You come, you come too, Dick. Okay, so Squaw Circle, I understand you would like to name it after a person that did a lot for the community. But I don't understand because Squaw Circle is not the whole community. It's a sweet little circle that we pay high taxes for. I understand they have to take squaw off that, but why couldn't it be Winnequa Circle or Dove Circle? Something nice. But not Kathy Thomas. Kathy Thomas is very nice, but she needs a sign or something like Kathy Thomas Glen or, why stick her down on Squaw Circle? She doesn't belong there. She's never been there. Sure, she did a lot for the community, but not for Squaw Circle. I think with the taxes we pay, because it is on the channel and that we really should go with the flow of something else that's just more appropriate.
Time's up.
Pardon? Oh, that's right. They won't let me come next time.
It's okay.
I'm even losing sleep over there. As you know, we pay huge taxes. Yeah, okay. I know, he wasn't gonna let me come, but I
Yes.
jumped in the car.
We all pay those taxes.
Oh,
Yes.
I don't know if you pay those, but anyway. So, but that's my complaint, and I'm hoping that you would reconsider, that you would, name it a nice little street like Cove, not Cove, but whatever, but not a person's name. That person's name needs to be up in a big sign, Kathy Thomas Glen or whatever, not on her circle. She had nothing to do with our circle.
Gotcha.
I think that since we pay, like you all do, those big taxes, it should kind of go the flow with the other streets in some way.
Gotcha. You want to be on the committee?
We met a month ago, and we're just here to see if any action's been taken on our suggestions. Since we were here a month ago, I had to leave, but I asked my son to. I'm not good at the computer, so he took my letter, put it in the computer, and I think, Dan, you got.
Yep, we have it.
We all got it. I don't want to belabor the issue, our situation, and what our concerns are, and we thank you for any wisdom or vision or common sense you give to the issue we talked about a month ago. That's all.
Thank you.
And we'll answer any questions you have. Unfortunately, I think I remember telling you that our little street now is 2 people, one passed away.
Yes.
So we're speaking for that family, but the house is going to be sold this fall. So it's a moot issue. So anything we know, or you can share with us about what you decided, or did you decide? or-
We haven't yet, so
Okay,
we haven't made an official recommendation.
okay. Are you going to make a decision or a recommendation to the city council?
We're gonna discuss it and then
Okay.
Call us in.
come to a consensus.
Okay,
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda tonight.
For consideration.
Yes,
So ours is only a recommendation.
Yeah.
from the city council.
Yeah.
This is ultimately up to-
right, we understand.
Um,
What is your recommendation that?
Well, they.
we don't have one yet, yes.
We haven't done that yet, but I do have 3 emails to read to the committee, as well as input from Dave, Leslie, and Bill, who are not here, but I asked for their opinions, so I can read all that. If you all want to hear all that. before we start. You can have a seat. You guys are on.
I'm not leaving.
You're
You
fine,
need to go
you're
back
fine to
there.
sit at our
Yeah,
table.
you're not on the board.
You're welcome to sit at
You're
the
not on
table.
the committee.
I don't want to terrify you or scare you.
We've already been. That's been-
By me.
No,
I'll tell by, I apologize.
It's fine, it's really fine. Okay, first email I received was from Barbara Wagner from 4815 20 Watson Trail. As a resident of Monona for 59 years, I believe Kathy Thomas definitely deserves special recognition for her many years of dedicated service to our community. I knew Kathy and always had a great respect for her and her accomplishments. However, I do not think naming a street Kathy Thomas Way is appropriate, especially since she never resided on Squaw Circle. It would make more sense to dedicate a large, beautiful, and engraved plaque with Kathy's name on it. The plaque could also list her years of service, etc. The plaque could be located by Frostwoods Beach, since the park area is next to her home, or at City Hall, or somewhere else appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
The next letter is from Bonnie Hanel at 5705 Squaw Circle. Thank you to the mayor, city council members, and public works committee for addressing this process of renaming Squaw Circle. Although I recognize the sentiment in which Kathy Thomas's name was proposed for renaming Squaw Circle, I feel there are more appropriate choices. Although I do believe former city alderperson Kathy Thomas deserves recognition for her many years of service, I do feel there are more meaningful ways in which to recognize her achievements, such as city projects, policies that she may have initiated. I feel Squaw Circle should be renamed in relation to the environment in which it is located, such as Winnequa Circle or Winklewack Circle or something similar. Although there may be reluctance to change a publicized proposed name, at this time, I do hope that the Council and Public Works Committee will reconsider their choice of a new street name for Squaw Circle. Bonnie Hanel. The last email I received was from Barbara Slack at 4305 Monona Drive. Dear Dan, I understand tonight your committee will be considering making a proposal to the city council for changing the name of Squaw Circle to Kathy Thomas Way. While I realize the street will be renamed eventually, I would prefer we honor Kathy's legacy with something that tells her incredible contributions made to the city of Monona. It would make more sense to me to have a significant plaque placed at Frostwoods Beach where she lived for most of her life. The plaque would express our gratitude and also tell her story. In the long run, people will remember Kathy with a plaque telling of her story and accomplishments. Young people will say years from now, who was Kathy Thomas? With the street name, but with telling her story, they will know who she was. Thank you, Barbara Slack. Now from Dave Boyer. His comments on the street name, it seems to me the tension here is between some citizens who live on the street, or now the street, and city council. I'm gonna start over. On the street name, it seems to me the tension here is between some citizens who live on the street. The council's direction was clear. They asked our committee to recommend renaming the street for Kathy Thomas. If they still feel strongly about that in light of the inputs, and if they feel that they represent the majority of the city's will, then I would still move forward on Kathy Thomas Way. And either we or they could provide an explanation that points out that we did hear other opinions and respect them, but the reasons we are still moving forward is. And he's up to the committee. As far as Leslie, with respect to the name change, I just want to be assured that all residents on the street were given the opportunity to weigh in. If not, then my thought is that we need to rethink. If Kathy will be honored in another way, I go with what the residents want. Address street change affects a lot of the person's life. In that regard, one way or the other, Squaw Circle will be renamed. Bill's email. I suggest the PWC revise the original motion renaming Squaw Circle to Kathy Thomas Way based on Mr. Matt Adler's written letter and the testimony provided by Mr. Dick Adler. I think there's still an opportunity to memorialize Kathy and satisfy the Adler's concerns. I would suggest renaming the street to Thomas Circle. This stays consistent with other circles along that section of Winnequa Road and still honors Kathy, albeit in a more subtle manner. I would also advise the council to pursue a more visible commemoration by naming a future building after Kathy Thomas, as was discussed prior to the meetings. That's all I have for Squaw Circle. I do have Bill's, Dave's, and Leslie's comments for our next item as well, and I'll cover that when we get there.
Okay. Good. Discussion.
Well, I mean, I still feel that we really can't honor Kathy Thomas enough. And I don't, I feel like the emotion of her loss, it's still recent, but I've reflected on this a lot, and I would reiterate what I said the last time, that while it's not enough to name this little circle after her, it's certainly not inappropriate to name this little street after her. And I would agree that putting a placard down at Frostwoods Beach is a perfect thing to do, and I will intend to show up and advocate when we have a public safety building to name that it be Kathy Thomas Public Safety. So, and I suspect all of these things will happen, but I don't think we are doing a disservice to her in any way by renaming this street. And I like the idea of Thomas Way, just shortening it. I think that may be.
But why that street?
Because
She did nothing for our
Well,
street.
because it's a street in the city, I think, and
But-
I think that's the rationale, though. It's the streets belong to the entire city.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but that said,
If I could add
Yes,
just one
please.
last thing, because we talked about this a little bit, let's just say hypothetically that we accept the argument that Kathy Thomas is a towering figure in our city's past and present. I mean, her legacy will live with us for decades. And so by that logic, Winnequa Drive should be renamed Kathy Thomas Drive.
She lives on that street.
And she did live on that street, but then we're going to be forcing, hundreds of residents to change their legal street address. All these other things we're talking about have minimal impact on people's lives, which further, I think, argues for the wisdom. If you're going to name a street, this is the perfect street, and all these other things need to happen too.
and to your point, if we were to try and rename Monona Drive or Winnequa Road, it would be one heck of an endeavor to try and have that done. As we can tell by a street with 2 residences on it currently,
Right.
how hard that is because of people's opinions.
Right.
If we were to try to do Winnequa, could you imagine us doing that? And that's certainly bigger, and we would love to do it, but we'd have, like Chad said, hundreds of people coming out and saying, but the history of the word Winnequa is important to me, or why aren't we naming it after ex-mayor from 1973, or what have you. And at the same time, when we look on that wall up there, there are several streets named after all the men that have served in this city over the years. We have 0 streets named after any prominent woman, and certainly none that have contributed as much as Kathy. And none of this has ever been to preclude doing something bigger or larger or more grand. But when we start talking about the complexity of naming a public safety building that we have yet to even conceptualize, there will be so many opinions regarding how that should be named, or who it should be named after, or if it should be named at all, that it will be incredibly difficult to accomplish. Whereas we have a street that is available that we must rename right now. That is a small street that is located on off of Winnequa, which is a sign that will be visible. And it will enter, Kathy, into the history of Monona as, you know, in the town of Burke. It tells you why the streets are named. I'm sorry, the town of Burke Museum, right? It's the Historical Society. It tells you why all the streets are named, why. As they,
Why she's not on that street.
Just one comment. I don't think it's not the location of the street that matters. It's the opportunity to do something for Kathy that's mattering. If we did something on the north side, or if a street on the north side of the city were available or needing to be renamed, we would have still considered Kathy for that street. So it's got nothing to do.
Even in front of her house in that old Kent Street,
Right.
Kathy Thomas Glenn, something like that.
The issue with us goes back a couple of years. We had a conversation with Kathy Thomas back then that her streets will be renamed. Fine and dandy. Well, it's taken a couple of years to get to the point we're at today. We're not against anything for Kathy Thomas.
We aren't.
Okay, don't mislead us on that. We are against the name of the street that doesn't fit the continuity of the area. I think at the last meeting, we talked about that area of Monona is the top is Birch Haven Circle, next is Delwood Circle, then is Cove Circle, then is Squaw Circle. Let's maintain that type of continuity in this little area of Monona. We have too many streets, that avenue here, road here, drive here, things like that. We got too much of that in Monona. We got a chance to do the right thing. I also think that in government, and that's all of us, the word that gets lost all the time, everybody brags about it, is a little word called transparency. Well, we were never contacted. We should have a little say so about the street that we live on, but whether you accept our opinion or not, but we were never contacted by anybody that the street was going to be changed. We were in Florida. Somebody saw it in the Monona paper.
We sent letters to you.
We never got it.
We sent letters and that's how you contacted me.
Okay, anyway, transparency in government is a key today. We didn't have that. We should have some say so on the area that we live in. We should recommend the use of our thoughts. We're not saying it should be called this or called that. We're just saying it should not be called Kathy Thomas Way. We can do better than that. We can show better knowledge, better common sense than that as a group of people. That's all we're saying. I know at the last meeting, one of you made the comment that, well, we checked with the kids of Kathy Thomas. Well, if they checked with the kids, why did they check with us?
again, we just sent letters to all the residents that were.
I know,
Yes.
that's a good point for me.
And you have been able to express your opinion with us at
Yeah.
at this meeting several times, so you have definitely had.
The second point, it was a good point made, that could we also name the street and have a plaque somewhere else? Well, that's overkill. Let's be reasonable about that. We don't need that. So that's our point. We're not against what you name it. We're just saying Kathy Thomas Way does not fit the continuity or collaboration of that area. We're not against Kathy at all. We know her better than what you most of you know.
So there are,
Delwood, where does that come from?
Pardon?
Delwood Circle? Isn't that
Well,
the
it's a
last name?
woody area. It's a very, on top of the hill, it's very woodsy.
Wood.
Yeah. Birch Haven, I don't know, but that whole area is got a lot of oak trees to it, almost like Frost Woods. So I had to do something with the woods probably.
There's that little park up there too.
Yeah. That's right.
there are two residents currently on the street, you and one other, you said they have third houses for sale.
Well, the house is not for sale. For the summer, they're leaving the house because they have a.
But it is,
But there's two basic residents residing there now.
Yeah.
And do you feel that you could come up with a name together that you could present forward to name the street?
Yes.
We happy to give you 8-10 names and from
What
there.
about your top one? You think you could
Yeah.
agree
Oh,
on
here,
one to
Right
present?
here, I've already covered that once before.
Because I think when we started this process, if I'm correct, we didn't really
I'll
have
these
a.
out to you real quick, then we can live with any of these. when the street in Bayview, we see the bay. Bayside, we're on the side of the bay. Water's Edge, we're on the edge of the water. Harbor Circle, we're like a little harbor. Lagoon Circle, we're like a little lagoon. Channel Circle.
Dove Circle.
But you would be able to put forth one name that is agreed upon by all. of
Yes.
the-
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
And probably the other people that,
I didn't sign up to talk. I apologize for that.
So is
Yeah.
there
And
any?
I would just like to remind the rules that we generally don't continue to engage with after the testimony portion of the meeting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we should leave. I understand.
oh, you can say,
No, you can
you can say, but the back and forth
Sure.
should be refrained from.
Thank you.
Is there a process to solicit names from residents?
The committee can do what the committee wishes.
Can the committee recommend Thomas Circle unless the residents present a unanimously chosen name to the council?
Again, the committee can do what the committee wishes. Yes,
The latest charge from city council though to the committee was to entertain it.
to consider naming. Yes.
In other categories.
And somehow there's like an error there too. And people keep saying Kathy Thomas Way, the original intent was Kathy Thomas Circle, not Kathy Thomas Way. I don't know where that, I think that came from. At one point, we were kind of joking a little bit about Kathy's Way, and somehow that ended up becoming
Yeah, it was Kathy Thomas's.
Kathy Thomas's Way. And somehow that became part of the. Yes.
Yeah, no, get it.
Yeah.
Didn't Bill suggest that the committee should rewrite the recommendation? I think that wasn't Bill's email.
It's not Bill Cole.
Oh, it's, oh,
It was Bill Sullivan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell us what the next procedure is?
Right here. We're gonna just continue to discuss it
Oh,
and then
please,
eventually make a recommendation one way or another to the council. But the charge from the council is to consider naming this street Kathy Thomas. So
And I would also just say that, you know, the council is free to do what it chooses. And it is asking for an opinion from this committee.
Mm.
But if it doesn't like the opinion of this committee, it will disregard it. Because the council is elected
yes, sure.
and we are but volunteers appointed at the will of the mayor. So
well, thank you for volunteering. That's.
yeah, thank you.
So, if I may.
Yep.
Okay. So, there's a couple of other ways of commemorating Kathy. Obviously, we talked about the public works, public services eventually. And I think her legacy will continue on to that point, and I think there would be less problem coming up with that, naming that structure, even if it's 5 years, 10 years down the road. You can also do like memorial names as well. It could be a particular address. Let's go with Bay Circle, just for the fun of it. And then you could also have a commemorative sign that goes with that too, which could be most anywhere. Doesn't have to necessarily be on that particular circle. I'm of the opinion as when this topic first came up, that if the neighbors had any resistance to this, if we were here, she would not go along with it. And I question that she would even go along with having the name on there, even if the neighbors agreed with it. I just, over the years that I knew her, she just wasn't looking for that kind of appreciation, shall we say. So I guess what I'm interested in doing is finding is exactly how we can get away from this topic, I guess. Now, I do like the idea of Thomas Circle. That does soften it, and that makes things a little easier. But at the same time, I guess my vote would be not to name it Kathy Thomas Circle, just so you know where I
The
stand.
committee could also choose to do nothing.
Okay. Throw it back to the council. That's what you ran for.
I'm just saying, the committee could choose to not have an opinion. Yeah. Or the thing about the Thomas Circle portion, though, I fear is that if the intention is to name a street in the city of Monona after a woman that has contributed to the city, that it dilutes the fact that it's named after Kathy Thomas, and it could be any Thomas to the casual observer. So that's my thought on that. Any recommendations?
So what is our directive from the council? To agree with them on Kathy Thomas Circle? To
The resolution is in your packet. Resolution 20-2.
I read it a couple of days ago, but
Expressing the city council's desire to rename Squaw Circle to Kathy Thomas Way.
In the section that says now therefore be resolved. That's in essence where they sent it back to
Yep.
us.
And so basically, as the committee considers, the council is expressing its desire to rename it Kathy Thomas Way.
Well, this is definitely going a little rogue, but you know, considering all the things that have been said, I like the idea of Kathy's Way. And it's just because it is a wink to her. Certainly a plaque could be placed to speak to it.
Yep.
But I do, though, struggle with it because I agree. I knew Kathy well enough to agree with what you just said, Tim. I think that she would not want the attention. But the flip side of that is she deserves attention.
I think most people who live a life of service don't do it for the recognition,
Right.
but it's customary, I guess, to make sure that that legacy is remembered in some fashion by those that survive.
Right.
You know?
This is kind of, is there trying to keep Kathy in it? Is there something that she loved that was based in nature, like her lilies or something, rename it?
Scorpions. She likes scorpion court. You know.
Oh.
Can I just add one of Kathy Thomas's pet in Monona? Was right across the street, the senior center. She was president off and on for many years. It was a pet project where she really jumped into her full feet. It's a senior center. She had, at her death was, I think, the president yet.
so what you're suggesting could be the Kathy Thomas Senior Center,
Or it should be.
and that could be immediate.
I think that's awesome.
Yes, our job is to react somehow to the council's directive.
So we can choose to concur and recommend something else, not recommend anything.
I did not know Kathy, probably the only one in this room who did not, but from everything I have heard about her from everyone, I don't think she would want to proceed with naming it Kathy Thomas anything, because we've got one letter against 2, 3 others. So my vote would be to not proceed with naming it after Kathy and
So we would
chart
need-
another path.
We would need a motion to do something. So did you want to make that a motion?
I will make that.
I'd second that.
And then, so the motion is a recommendation to not advise the council to rename the street Kathy Thomas Court or Way, and pursue a different process.
Yes, I would say a process that involves the residents
Okay,
in choosing the name or a group of names that
Gotcha.
should be selected by this committee or council, I guess.
okay, and we have a second. You're still okay with all that?
We have a lot of adults downstairs.
Any further discussion?
Second.
I second.
Any further discussion about it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Before we move on, I gotta make sure I have this motion. The recommendation was to advise council to not against.
Against renaming, against specifically renaming the court. I'm sorry, renaming the street Kathy Thomas Circle or Way. Put both in there because it seems they've gotten confused over time. And to pursue an alternate involving the residents of the street. Right?
Are they gonna kick it back to us again?
Yes, and then they will.
Well, to that end, I mean, I would just make a comment that given that we have apparently renamed the bay, which I somehow missed the memo on that, but I'm happy to see it. I mean, it would help reaffirm the fact that,
You can make another motion too.
you know, I would make a motion that we consider calling that
Go up.
Wickawak
Mhm.
Circle in recognition of the fact that we have renamed the bay,
Mhm.
which this street used to be named after.
Mhm.
And we would be renaming it for the same good reason. And we would help to raise awareness of the name of the bay.
Is that a formal motion?
Yes,
It is.
sir, second.
I would second that.
Any further discussion?
And I would add to that, if I may, that with the consultation and approval of the people who live on that street.
Well, you're saying that should be in the consideration of
Yes,
a name.
Correct,
A
correct.
possible
I
name.
just,
That's a friendly amendment.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, so you get that?
The motion was to rename it, to match the bay as Bay, Wickawak Bay as Wickawak, what would be?
Circle.
Or circle.
Are the others, aren't the others circles?
Highway?
I'll do it.
The others are circles, so I think it's a circle.
Wickawak Circle. And then I didn't get the last part of that.
What was the last part of it now? The last part of it was your amendment, which, how was that worded again?
Well, actually, if this is all fitting into one amendment, I think we've got that covered. With the earlier amendment and then this amendment. So basically what Chad is doing is making a recommendation that it would be named after the bay.
But you also wanted the consideration of the
Oh,
residents.
In consideration
Yeah,
of the
okay.
neighbors.
Yes, yeah, it's a separate motion, so that should be with that as well.
In consideration of
In
In
consultation.
consultation with the.
consultation with the resident.
Yeah,
A way to get a vote of the residents.
well, we have 50% of them here right now.
Well, yeah.
Would
You sign a
just out of
resolution?
curiosity, and this is not protocol, would you be okay with that?
We can live with it.
Yes,
Okay,
Okay.
you think your neighbors would be okay with it?
I know, I'm positive.
Okay,
And I just want to ask, since we're engaging you, you know,
Yes.
and since we had that incident earlier. If this all goes down, you're not going to come back here a few months later and tell us that we're crazy and you didn't want
and
it.
you didn't want it.
It's recorded.
Been here a long time.
Okay,
We're fast.
But you're not gonna consider.
We love it.
okay.
Keep our constitution.
Keep it close to your heart.
This one-
All right, I think, and so we need to vote on this motion. Yes. Right, did we vote on this motion? No.
Not yet.
No, okay,
We have,
so all those in favor, and can you read that back to us one more time?
okay, Chad with the motion, Tim Stenzel seconds it. Motion is to rename Squaw Circle to match Wickawak Bay as Wickawak Circle. And we did consult with 50% of the residents
Mhm.
and they approve it. So now we're up to you guys.
Yep.
To carry it or not.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
That's what will proceed to city council.
Mhm.
Wickawak Circle.
Yep. And then the council will decide whether or not they want to listen to the committee or do something different.
The other, sure.
Yep.
We understand.
And we would encourage you to show up at the council meeting.
When is that?
It's
We don't
We don't
know.
know yet.
That's up, that's at the pleasure of the mayor when she wants to put it on the agenda, but we will notify you when it
Thank you.
happens.
Me too, because
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you for your time. and
Years I should have some say, right?
Better yet, thank you for your volunteering. I think that's awesome.
Sure. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Thanks for your input.
No, that's up now, okay? Wacky white.
Don't worry. Believe me, you are not wacky.
Thank you.
All right. And then the only other business that we have tonight is the discussion and consideration of future public works committee meeting start time. And that was basically, we were looking at changing it from 6 to 6.
So a recap of last month's meeting, this comes at my request to see if you all are okay with 6:30, or if you want to consider looking at a different start time. I did hear from Tim, going into last month's meeting that you have, paid.
I think they should.
5:30. So with that, this committee, decided to put it on this month's agenda for discussion. So that's what we're here with. Dave is fine with 6 o'clock if that works for the rest of the committee. Leslie is fine with changing the time to 6 o'clock as well. She wrote, I am fine with changing the meeting time. But I think when she was here, she agreed with 6 o'clock if that was what the committee wanted. And then Bill is also fine with changing it to 6 o'clock. I would be fine setting future PWC meetings to 6 o'clock or 6:30. So
I have no objection to 6 or 6:30, so whatever.
6, that doesn't work for you, Tim, or does it?
It does, I'm good with it.
Oh. How about you?
Well, I
Is it-
usually
you
get out
seem
the
to-
office about 1:45.
So that's pretty quick.
Yeah, that's pretty quick. And that's assuming everybody runs on time.
Yes. So I think
I
because,
run on time.
because of that, we probably should minimum probably do 6:15, right?
I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. I put it out there because we have new members on the committee and it's worth entertaining. And if 6:30 works,
And this will probably be my last run around, so I'll be resigning after this, but next year.
there you go. Where you did.
I've got 2 years, yeah, we just resigned.
So then you got 2 years yet. If you re-up in May, then I think it's a 2-year.
Yeah, so it's a term or a sentence.
Maybe the
I
meeting.
mean, we have some applicants. I mean, you could resign. whatever.
Oh, Karen would like this. That is one brave man, right?
So like.
Yeah, all right, so we don't have to take any action on that at all. Can I bring something up? Ancillary to the naming squad board for discussion? Or do we need to put that on the agenda? Because it's a kind of an idea and alternate.
I see this all we moved on to different.
Yeah.
items. I'm not sure if we can go back.
That might be something for the council anyway.
Right.
So, okay, all right.
So I've always thought that there should be an agenda right at the end of the meeting where we as committee members could bring up different things.
Potential new business.
Type of pothole, or I was gonna make a comment about how good the fogging works up on where we fogged it.
See, I did ask Bill Cole about that a few years ago. And he says we cannot just randomly bring up items to discuss,
Well,
but we
but
can,
they can go on to future agendas.
yes. When,
I
I'm
call
not
it the
sure.
sharing of joys and concerns.
I'm not sure at what stage, that's why I always think in the Public Works and Utility Operations Report, because the topics are so wide ranging, it could be a topic that slides in somewhere in there,
Sure.
but it can't be carried on.
Right.
But that would also be the time, I'm assuming, when or when we get to the next scheduled meeting, that could be a time where the committee says, we want to put this on the agenda. But
So that would be the committee report.
yeah, item number 7, if you want to make comments that might be based on something in the report.
Mhm.
But there's, every portion of DPW is covered in.
Right.
But we gotta be sure that we don't carry on with the discussion.
Mhm.
about that.
Because then it wouldn't be noticed.
Yeah.
But it would be, you could bring it up in order to put it on a future agenda.
Yes.
Or ask if it should be on a future agenda.
Yes, and Alder Fuel determines.
Yeah. So yeah, just email it or text it or stop by with a beer.
There you go. Well, so did I understand that correctly, Dan? So during that period, you could, because we are, like you say, wide ranging, it could be anything about
Yeah,
the chip seal, it could be anything about the
yeah,
sewer, you could bring those things up and then
it,
it could be a discussion as
tie
long as
in.
there's no decision.
yes. If, as long as there's no back and forth discussion, I think you could. Give me an opinion, share your feedback, whatever, but we then cannot go back and forth among the group,
Gotcha.
right, according to what Bill Cole says.
Anything else? Operations report.
Okay. It's been a busy month. It's the first time in 12 years, my time, that I haven't had a meeting minutes done. I think I've never done that before, so I apologize for not having those minutes to you. Somebody missed them, noticed I didn't have them to you, but it was a busy month. We were working hard behind the scenes with all of our projects that we are kicking off. A lot of work behind the scenes with the Lagoon du Nord Bridge replacement project, even though that's going to happen in 2027. We are still ironing out with the DOT negotiations with MSA and their fee, but that follows the federal process. The chip seal contract, we finally got that finalized this week. So they started crack sealing the streets already and massive patching certain areas. They are planning to be here third week of June or the fourth week of June to begin chip sealing. We'll be sending out our resident letters here shortly. I think they have to wait about 3 weeks after chip seal to do the fog seal. That will be explained in the letter. We're still working behind the scenes with the mayor on Nichols Road because we did receive word that we did get federal funding to reconstruct Nichols Road in the future. So now we're trying to figure out what do we want to do to meet the federal requirements regarding bike lanes. So as long as we put bike lanes on Nichols, we get federal funding. If we don't add bike lanes on Nichols, we don't get federal funding. So to add bike lanes, we have to do something with parking. So we're going to get creative with parking. We're not going to take parking away. We're going to get creative with in bays in certain areas so we can get the best of both worlds. So we're working on that. I need to pick the garbage RFP back up. That's been sitting idle for about a month and a half. My goal is to get that issued here in the next month so we can get some numbers back from the operating budget. Our contract with Waste Management ends at December 31st.
And I was looking for recycling every week, right?
I'm going to be writing it to have recycling every week, but I'm going to also have them give me pricing for every other week as it is now. We've had a lot of citizen requests over the past 5 to 7 years for weekly recycling. So I think that would be about it. Unless there's any other comments that might come about related to the operations report.
And going back to that chip seal thing, just going out on the bike over the weekend, north end of Winnequa, there's no gravel on the sides. There's no loose aggregate anywhere.
That's great.
You get down by the bait shop and there you've got where it isn't fogged. It's probably gonna last much longer.
The life is about 5 years.
Yeah.
With chip seal. It is cheaper than the microsurfacing. And the microsurfacing, we've got mixed results on that in some areas, the lesser traveled streets, it's holding up quite well. On some other areas, it's peeled away. But with the chip seal, with the fog seal application on, I think those roads are looking pretty good and we'll find out even more after this.
Yeah.
Because we're doing every street with a public seal.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that was a good trial project.
Yeah. okay,
I was looking for Thunder Road and then I realized it's the name of the contract.
yeah.
Like, I didn't know we had a Thunder Road. Did Bruce Springsteen live here?
Yeah.
It's well work.
We are not planning a meeting in July, unless something comes about where we have to meet. And then our August meeting is on Tuesday, August 1st. That's at my request because I have to pick up an RV on Wednesday afternoon. And my mind's gonna be out west, so I thank you all for agreeing to do that meeting date for me, so.
If I could just put you on notice that I will be able to be here, but it is my birthday and I'm gonna have family visiting in town. So if you don't need my presence, I will
let you know.
bow out.
It's a capital budget
Okay.
on August 1st,
Oh, gosh.
I'll review it and give you comments.
You definitely
But
would
I'm
bail out of that one.
but we, with having 9 members, as long as we have 5. So.
All right. Motion for adjournment.
I would move.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned. Would anyone like to grab these copies of the preamble of the Constitution?
You know, I'm gonna.
Do you want me to say something to Doug?
Shut up.
Specifically mentioned them?
Very kind.